because he is the one who knows what's going on.
Better than a trampoline.
Better than a trampoline.
What take with that. We are looking at a new area of convection that is really firing up, and I was just looking at the reconnaissance. The hurricane hunters are currently in the storm. As a matter of fact, they're kind of doing now round-the-clock flights, and they are finding some slightly lower pressures and possibly some stronger winds. So it may be that the storm is finally, and I don't say finally in terms of anything that's great, but because of the models have been indicating that we would eventually see this become a hurricane, it may be that it is well on its way. Now, winds of 65 miles an hour. It is on the cusp, so it wouldn't take much of a little burst of intensity for this to become a hurricane, and it's possible at the 4 o'clock advisory. Again, we've got another hour and 20 minutes before we get that next advisory. It may be that we see this as a hurricane just because of that new area of convection, and we will have to wait and see through the rest of this evening and tonight if that continues. We saw that occurring yesterday early in the day where you got these areas of thunderstorms that started to fire up and then they began to weaken. So we will see if this is a trend which continues. It really has only started to occur in the last couple of hours. And still, as I've been mentioning, this is a broad, very large center. While we have kind of the center point right here, this, as you can see, very well shown on the radar out of Brownsville, Texas, is a very large center. So it still doesn't yet have that closed off core that is more of a tightly wound system that would indicate more of a rapid intensification. And a lot of the discussions from the Hurricane Center started to kind of back off on that rapid intensification, certainly a quick intensification with the possibility of it by early tomorrow morning up to 90 miles an hour. And there is still the thin chance of it becoming a 2 before landfall. I was also looking at the latest model runs that will be incorporated for the 4 o'clock advisory, and a lot of those have not indicated a 2. Even as of yesterday, when Hurricane Center started to indicate that this could become a Category 2 storm, it was only a few of the models, and the Hurricane Center admitting that possibility of a 2 was more on the high end of the forecast as opposed to the great consensus of the models, and most of those, well, actually all of those, have since backed off on it becoming a 2. So I wouldn't think we would see a change. And again, this is just thinking, looking at the numbers and the data as it's coming in right now. We still have another hour's worth of data that will be entered into models and something more that the Hurricane Center will be looking at. But I would venture to say we probably won't see a shift in the track or really a change in the forecast intensity at landfall. What we might see is that Francine is becoming a hurricane. With that being said, we were expecting it to become a hurricane, and as we've also been talking about the fact that this is going to be moving very, very quickly. This is not going to just sit. It's not going to have a lot of period of time to build up a massive storm surge. So some of the numbers we have been showing you are on the high end of the forecast. We're looking at kind of the worst case scenario for more of our coastal areas, and I don't like comparing storms, but this is completely different from Ida. Ida had the strongest surges in more Barataria Bay and east. This is going to bring in more of the higher surge in Terrebonne Bay as well as Barataria, and not as much along the eastern Louisiana coastline, though we are still expecting maybe 3 to 5 feet in the lakes. I'll show you that in just a second. Note, by Thursday early morning, it is already up near Jackson, so this is going to be quickly moving northward, as well as wrapping around some drier air, so we should start to see by late tomorrow night a lot of that rainfall wrapping up as well. Here's the latest on our computer models. Again, this is kind of right in the center of the forecasted track as of the 10 a.m. advisory. I wouldn't, again, think we're going to see a major change in the 4 p.m. Winds right near. We have a buoy that is not far away from the center of the storm, and note it is only sustained at 25 miles an hour. Now, again, as we've been mentioning, that is the way the wind field is right now. It will likely expand out as it does gain a little bit of strength and over the course of the day today and before landfall. But right now, that wind field of tropical storm force winds at the moment remains fairly strong, and you really only find that within some of the strongest of the thunderstorms. That's going to be a big question too. With this storm, it will likely start to and continue to wrap around drier air. So where exactly will the strongest storms be? Typically, we would have those on the eastern side, the wetter side, the dirty side, as some people say. But the models have been really indicating, with that drier air wrapping around, those heavier storms may be at the center and just to the west, which is not usual. So it may be that the heaviest of the rainfall will kind of follow along with where the center moves in and a little bit more displaced to the west. That's certainly the possibility on the east as well, but we may also see some of those heavier totals out to the west, so even out toward Lafayette, even as the center of the storm has been trending a little bit more away from Lafayette after landfall. Here's another look at yet another model. This is actually the Euro. I should kind of change my text up there, but this is basically saying the same thing. We'll kind of see the structure change as it moves into that wind sheared environment and that drier air moving around. It may shift a lot of those storms, at least within the core of the storm, off more on the western side. This is another model, the NAM. We use this usually in forecasting with the tropics, and this too kind of indicating a little bit more of a structure in the near term, so through the night and into early tomorrow. But as it starts to move toward the coast, we start to see a lot of those heavier storms shifting a little bit more on the western side. Tomorrow morning, you still have a little bit of time to make preparations and get things brought inside, get any lawn decorations. I'm already starting to see a lot of the Halloween decorations out. I know coming into work this early afternoon, a lot of folks had their trash cans out. Trash collecting is not happening tomorrow. Bring them back in, because we will have that close-in window early tomorrow morning until about noon for the metro area, obviously a little bit sooner than that along the coastline, before those tropical storm force winds begin increasing. And again, with the track having shifted a little bit more in our direction, we have a higher percent chance of seeing tropical storm force winds in the city of New Orleans and across southeast Louisiana. This model, this is based on the GFS, has really been downplaying the sustained wind threat. And it may be, if that wind field stays a little bit stronger, or a little bit smaller, excuse me, then we could only see maybe 40 to maybe 50 mile an hour sustained winds, maybe. Based on the GFS, the bigger issue would be some of those higher wind gusts that can do some damage, but really when we're looking at any widespread damage, it usually is from those long-term sustained winds that we watch out for. What we call the QPF, the quantitative precipitation forecast, is also indicating kind of that band of where we would see the heavier storms. 4+ inches possible, a little bit more widespread, but this doesn't look to be as much of a rain issue per se as much as wind, and then also the coastal flooding with, again, this is kind of a completely different storm than what we saw from Ida. We have more of an issue from Barataria Bay, Barataria Bay toward Terrebonne Bay, and then out toward Vermilion Bay, with the possibility of 6 foot above ground level. And then our inland lakes, we are looking at the possibility of 3 to 5. So that is all that water that is piling up into Lake Borgne, Lake Pontchartrain, has to go somewhere, can't move onto the levee system of Orleans and Jefferson, so it makes its way into the river parishes, as well as St. John, kind of as you go up toward Manchac, and then into southern Tangipahoa Parish, as well as all of southern St. Tammany Parish, with the flooding that is very frequently seen along Lakeshore Drive. This is the dry air, though, that I will say is what has been a struggle for the system itself and for the models to figure out. It may be that it's able to kind of compact a little bit of moisture to work off of without that dry air really hindering any further development. That was always a possibility, and it may be what it's trying to take advantage of in the near future. Long term, though, as we get toward tomorrow morning, it's going to see increasing hostile conditions with strong wind shear, and certainly as it crosses inland. This also, unlike Ida, that kind of maintained its strength well northward, this will start immediately weakening once it moves inland, because we've got that increasing wind shear over land and off the coastal waters, as well as that dry air, which will, if nothing else, even if it doesn't help it to weaken right away, will help it to kind of erode away a lot of the rainfall. After landfall, we're looking at 10 o'clock. Well, we will still see some heavy rainfall around the area, and I'm talking more southeast Louisiana. We'll also have at the same time the drier air, which may help to kind of evaporate a lot of those heavier storms and kind of decrease the intensity of a lot of the storms. We have seen kind of a broken off cluster of storms from Francine now moving over our area. So we're getting a moderate to heavy rainfall now pushing from the coast and arriving into the South Shore and metro area. This will continue to move northward. This is a fairly robust complex of storms that had been moving northward, kind of separated from Francine, now moving over the area, and kind of that moderate, steady rainfall. So a fairly nasty afternoon that will continue through the rest of the night. 79 degrees our current temperature, at least with the clouds and rainfall. It has not been a hot day at all. We're in the 70s and low 80s. And again, the good news is that we are expecting conditions conditions to quickly improve. Nasty day tomorrow. This is going to be one of those days, and you'll have a brief window in the morning if you need to do anything else outdoors, bringing things inside. And then after about noon, just hang indoors, wait this out. By Wednesday night into Thursday morning, conditions are already improving. I need to take that out. It'll be a 40% chance of rain in the morning. Then we are clear and a little less humid for our Friday and going into Saturday. A little bit warmer, but at least relatively dry as we continue through this weekend and early next week.